My name is Ryan and I am the King of Booty Fab, and today we are episode 3 of the 59 Apache build. So what behind me is the last time you're going to see this frame before we have a body to drop onto it. This is going to be a flurry of activity, some sped up, some slowed down, some explanations, some phenomenal fab work that I am very proud of. And yeah, there's some cool stuff in here. This is starting to get so much better. I love this part of the build. The cap goes on next. But yeah, before we get into it, do me a favor. If you enjoyed the video once you watched it, like the video. If you enjoy what I'm doing, follow the channel, click the alert bell, drop me a comment down below, tell me what you think, do the whole YouTube thing. And yeah, let's check this thing out. Okay, so before this becomes the complete and utter organized chaos that it's about to become, I'm here to give you a quick rundown on the parts. This is kind of how we like to start these days, is make sure that everything's in one place. We know where everything is. Obviously, this chassis is basically exactly how I left it when I was sitting right here at the end of the last video. Now, the algorithms still aren't working, so just about nobody's seen that, and it doesn't matter because hopefully you guys are all watching this because you looked back at old videos when it catches up and whatever. Obviously, we have wheels. Back when 20s were huge, OG Boss wheels, you know, this is was pretty much disgustingly standard rolling stock for late 90s minis trucks. We got a factory Moog sway bar for this thing because air ride. Tank straps. I've been spending time laying everything out on the table here just so we got everything ready to go. So starting over on this side, we've got what is almost a complete kit from AccuAir. It's a complete kit from somebody. Where did I see it? I think it's a complete kit from Easy Air Ride. EasyAirRide.com. There is some irony nowadays in putting bottle openers on keychains. Yeah, but whatever. Yeah, polished tanks, dual 480C compressors in chrome because hot rod. This is all the wiring, fittings, plugs, all that stuff for basically the entire system. Plastic line, all push connects, I believe. Going to these AccuAir manifolds, these are arguably one of the best on the market. There was only 2 options we were willing to look at. This was the preference. This is a kit we ended up with. So not only do we have the AccuAir manifold, but it's also got the ride height sensors. These are far superior to the pressure sensors that the other kits come with, or you need one or the other to be able to run the set ride heights instead of just pushing buttons up and down. Pressure. If you put more load in the back of the truck, it doesn't bring your truck back up to level because it's squashing the bags. It's not going to level it back. Anyways, ride height sensors are the way to go. And this kit we got off someone locally who had ordered it with the Bluetooth option, which means we can control it with the phone. Super awesome. Copper brake line kit from Amazon because we haven't gone wrong with them yet. Nice kit to work with. They're cheap. A lot of Evil Energy stuff, same thing. This is a brand that we bought a bunch of in the past couple of years. All the AN hoses for fuel lines, all their fittings. You got to stick with their hoses to their fittings, like most people's, but we've had really good luck with it. It seems like good quality. The push locks to go onto the sending unit. Evil Energy band clamps, because... what else have we got up here? Remflex gaskets. That is the only way to go with headers. That is the only gasket I will put in. No paper gaskets. No metal gaskets. They're all garbage. Just run Remflex. That's all I got to say about that. So we have front and rear brake lines. The 8.8 is weird. It's got a brake line that comes from the frame over to the driver's side caliper, and then one hard line. So you only need 2 lines. New sending unit with a TBI pump or a spider injection pump or whatever it is. Either way, we'll just put a regulator on it. All new steering right down to the center link. We've got Pitman, idler, adjusters, inner and outer tie rod ends. The only thing we don't have here, and Dustin might find it when he gets back, but I can't find the idler pivot, which are notoriously garbage in these trucks. They just always feel bad. So we thought we ordered one. It's probably on a shelf, but the thing is, a lot of this stuff was ordered a long time ago. We've known about this truck for a long time. It got stripped months ago. It was off at Sandblast. It's back. Yeah. Anyways, stainless small block Chevy headers straight off Amazon. It's a shame. You can buy $200 headers for an LS, but they cost you over $300 for a small block Chevy. But we've bought these before. They're kind of nice. They've got O2 bungs if we needed them. They've got collectors. They come with, crappy stock gaskets. Doesn't matter. All stainless exhaust. We get our stuff from Lyle's here in Canada. What is it? Mandrelbending.ca, I believe. Or lylestainless.com. These guys are phenomenal. They ship fast. It's cheaper than anywhere I found. We've been buying it for a couple of years. And it's always good stuff. I love their bends. They're cleaner than the stuff we get from the parts store, and they're stainless. We can get stainless U-bends cheaper from these guys than we can aluminized U-bends from the local parts store. And it's free shipping over $99, I think. So these guys are awesome. Shout out to Lyle's. An X-pipe, because we didn't feel like making one, just makes our life easier. And we've got some stainless hangers. I love these block hangers. These are my favorites. They just work because they actually limit it. And once they're on there, they limit it side to side, front to rear, up to down, all of it. They just control it all. Yeah. So now we just need to get all of this plus the fuel tank. The fuel tank was in here. The fuel in this truck was so old. It smells like varnish that's gone bad. So it's outside the shop's aired out. Yeah, I've got some clamshell motor mounts to replace mine because I did guess, and once we got it all together, the clearance is a little bit tight there. It had been a long, hot week, so I just messed it up. I'll accept that, but it allowed us to drop it in here so we knew what was going on. So I've got the clamshells to go there. So I'm going to get on that. I'm going to get the trans mount done, drill a couple of holes, get that motor mounted, get the headers on there, bolt it up, bolt on some collectors, start assembling the exhaust, get the fuel tank in. We've got shocks we've got to order, a couple odds and ends, but for the most part, we can plumb this whole chassis. The idea is we're going to spend a couple of days doing this, and we're going to get it all plumbed, all the wiring, all the plumbing for the air and the fuel, all run, everything dealt with, and then kick it out of the way, go back to the international project while we're waiting for the body for this to show up. So, everybody up to speed? Cool. So just throwing these front bags in. Now, obviously, if you ever watch these bags twist as a control arm because this stays, that pivots. They're going to twist, they're going to compress. Now, they're too tall to fit in there compressed, so you can't fit them in compressed. Sometimes they're a bit of a pair. So usually what I end up doing is I'll take the hardware from the top and I'll throw this top hardware in. That in. Throw the other bolt in. This will help locate it. And since the bottom ones are kind of, they end up on an angle, they don't end upright. I've had a bunch of times where they're just a total pain in the butt to get in. Usually mount them with 3/8 by 3/4 long. These are 1.5 inches long. They're obviously too long to thread all the way into the bag, but it's kind of nice because I can throw these in there and just use them as basically alignment dowels. So that there we go. There we go. So, unfortunately, they don't always line up perfectly. I mean, it all depends on the way the kit was designed, plus who installed it. Because these cups don't always align properly. So, in this case, I had to push the bag off to the side, just throwing it out there. Longer bolts are your friend. So one of the other things I try to make sure of is that when I'm tightening up the bolts, I'll tighten the uppers, but the lowers, I don't want to tighten them like this. Bags will always look like they're kind of slid out on weird angles when they're fully extended. They look like this when there's no air in them and they're hanging like this. I always tighten the uppers, or, put them ballpark where they need to be. Leave the lowers loose, and then shuffle the bottom around. So when they're compressed all the way, they look pretty uniform. Now, this, I don't know, in a perfect world, this isn't perfect, purely because you can see bag's touching here, but it's obviously got a pretty good gap. I can get my finger under it at the back, which means that spring, that upper plate and the control arm are not parallel. If we actually measured them up, it's a gap here at that end. Now, whether that's a kit error, an installer error, they made it from scratch, who knows? But in a perfect world, these two plates at full bump, when the bag is fully compressed, would be perfectly parallel each other. So when you're building these, let's say you're welding in this upper cup, you'd actually take, say your bag is 3.5 inches collapsed, you take a 3.5 inch spacer with 2 bolt holes in it to mimic your bags, bolt it between the control arm and the upper plate, and then weld your upper cup in. But it's not a perfect world. We don't live in a perfect world. But for my sake, this looks pretty uniform. It doesn't look like it's all twisted and, any more than it has to be. So I can tighten up the lowers, and, control arms are loose, ball joints are loose. None of that matters because the lower pivots don't change. So we can get all this in, and this is full bump. This is all the way on the ground as low as it gets. So once you get it up to ride height, the bags start looking better. But tighten this, and then we can get on the back ones. So in the fronts, these fittings would actually fit through the holes in the upper, so I could put them in the bag before. They're easier to tighten down once they're in the bracket, but in the backs, they don't fit through. So the thing is, this is why you want to dry fit stuff, to try and find out where the issues are, because otherwise you put stuff together with silicone or sealant or Loctite or silicone, whatever, doesn't matter what you're working on, and then you find out that it doesn't fit quite right. And in our case, ironically, as I say that, we did not dry fit these because we mistakenly assumed that these bags would have the port in the same place, which ironically, they do not. I didn't even think to check that. I'm not sure why. So in the front, normally when I make the plates, or a lot of people make them, they've got a big slot. I just kind of assumed that they were going to be in the same place, but yeah. So I'm going to break out the die grinder. I'm going to take that bag out, break out the die grinder, put the cap back in to keep the stuff out, and we'll go for round 2. Look, it's perfectly acceptable to put a carbide burr in a drill when the die grinder's burned out. And this is handy. This doesn't, I'm not a big fan of the carbide burr on this. It just doesn't have the punch. At least that doesn't slow down. But carbide burr, that on there. Now we got a slotted hole. So I'm just going to blow that off, throw some paint on it, and then we can actually assemble it as soon as it dries, which should be quick since it is hot as all get out in here. So of course, once you've taken the time to make the whole slot, you got to make sure to bolt the bag in backwards, 180 from where you want it, because we obviously need to check clearances, or I don't know. My own fault. Doing these bag on bars always suck, and I just got totally sidetracked by putting it into place that I wasn't paying attention. There's no excuse. But it doesn't matter. Unbolt it, spin it around. There's one. So, anybody gets bored of this, let me know. I hate sped up videos. It's not my favorite thing to do. Sometimes I just get frustrated filming. So I'm trying to, film a little bit as I go. So all I'm trying to do here is get some tension on that bag, because I got to pull this forward quite a bit. And, there we go. I'm putting bolts in without lock washers, so yeah, 3/8 by 3/4 lock washer, flat washer is basically the right length to not bottom out the bag. Lock washer, flat washer. Gotta be careful too. The last thing you want to do is cross thread one of these. There we go. Now, gotta tighten these ones up right away. If I don't tighten it up right away, I'm going to forget, and it's going to be a bit of a pain in the butt. There we go. So, now, let's just take this. Now, we got plenty of room. And now, obviously, there is more room than we need. Why is there more room? Because it was much easier to put a hole saw just in the good metal and cut it out than it was to die grind this hole. A little bit cleaner. Plus, this hole was a little bit small to begin with. I feel better about the bigger hole, but I just threads in there. I'll tighten it down in a sec. Do the other side. So this is where bag on bar shines. Even though it's not my favorite, obviously, I think I went over this before. From that point to that point, the bag is over halfway to the frame side, which means it's over 2-to-1. So let's say that moves 2 inches, that will move, say, 4.5 of the diff. So if you've got a 9-inch stroke bag, you got over 20 inches of travel, whatever it works out to. It's quite a bit, as you can see. I mean, considering that axle tucks up into that notch, it's pretty obvious compared to, say, here, where on a control arm, usually your control arms have more leverage than your rear, but here you see point there, it's kind of a straight through line right there, to there, the bag's over halfway that way. So it's less than 2-to-1. This is over 2-to-1. That's where it shines. It's ridiculous. We don't need it. And we need to run more than double the pressure to get up to ride height that we would if it was on the axle. So higher pressures, more strain, but more travel. There's trade-offs for everything. Either way, the bags are all bolted in. The fittings are all tightened down. So I'm leaving them alone tonight. I'm going to jack that back up so that it's not just hanging on the bags. I don't like to do that. And I'll throw that on stands. And I think I'm going to throw the headers on tonight before I call it quits. So always, first step is to remember to yank out all this stuff that somebody else threw in here. Make sure it's all out. There's been once or twice where I've put headers on, found out that it wasn't just one little piece of rag, it was a bunch of little ones. But it's funny, videotaping stuff actually helps me remember to do stuff. I'm trying to point things out. Remflex gaskets, these are awesome. They actually help warped headers seal even. Now, plug wires the way they are, I don't know if they're going to get to stay like that. It's going to be a question for a few minutes from now. These headers came with these nice small stainless head bolts. The Allen heads are nicer. This thing you don't have to do this stuff with a wrench since you can't put a socket on any of them. At least the flanges on this one are nice and thick, so it's not horrible. But anybody that's worked on small block Chevys knows the pain of all this stuff. These headers actually stick out not too bad from the block. I'll be able to leave the block wires underneath. But either way, I'm not really stressed about it right now. You can always pop them off, move them around, clean them up. It's a final assembly and fire up worry for right now. They're just out of the way. Okay, I'm gonna grab a wrench. I'm not gonna make you watch me do this all up with a wrench, but when I come back, this is done. I'll tell you what, this is a problem with Chinese parts. I don't care if stuff's metric, I don't care if it's imperial, but if you're gonna have an imperial bolt with a metric head, it drives me up the wall. 10 mil fits, 3/8 is too small, 7/16 is too big. This drives me crazy. If it's imperial, use imperial. For anybody that's never worked on small block Chevys before, I'll show you what the problem here is. These pull bolts are usually okay. You can get a socket on that one, wrench on that one, wrench on that one. You can usually get a wrench on that one. These two here, the flanged head of the bolt actually rubs the tubes on the way in. At this point, you have to go open-ended wrench all the way. And some headers, I've even had them where you got to dent the headers right there just to get them in. The other side's probably the same, but yeah. This stuff's tedious. Okay, so here's the thing. When I'm down here, I work pretty long hours. I mean, I wake up at 5 or 6 sometimes. I'm out here usually by 8 o'clock-ish, even if I'm not in here working. And it's pushing 10 o'clock. So, I mean, I've been out here around 14 hours. The heat gets rough. Sometimes I just slip. Dustin and I work really well together because we keep each other accountable. We usually catch the things each other misses. But as I'm tightening these, it dawns on me that all this effort to tighten the difficult ones may not matter because I might have to take them off. And then as he walks in and we're discussing how to get this 3-inch collector down to the 2.5-inch tube we've got, I realized that we've got to cut that. So the plan is to put a 3-inch V-band up here. So we got to cut it all the way out there. And then we're going to turn this down, and it's 3 1/4 here right now, and weld that into the 3-inch V-band. But we don't have that V-band right now. So we're going to do is in the morning when we get up, we're going to cut this off, probably pop it back off, cut it, clean it, bolt it back on with a couple of bolts. And yeah, we're just going to tack weld that to that. Down. There we go, point the right direction. Because that way we can start on the fabrication for the exhaust. We want to do it all like this because we can put blocks and put it to the level of the frame, get the X pipe in over there, plan for mufflers, all that stuff. We've got everything except the mufflers here, so it's easier to do it when it's just a frame as opposed to working underneath. So for tonight, see you in the morning. All right, so this morning we pulled the header back off. Realized that I kind of jumped the guns, pulled the header back off, cut off the bottom of the collector here, and we're going to put a 3-inch band clamp right here, but we didn't have any here. So for now, I'm just going to take the opposite side of the collector flange. We're going to tack it up here. I've cut it short because all I care about is the 3-inch to 2.5-inch release. So I mean, the nice thing is we can just tack weld stuff. There. We can tack weld stuff and move on. So what I did is, again, add a piece of U-bend. And I love building exhausts out of these mandrels. You can see my straight edge here. So what I had done is I took this and I had put it up inside of there, figured out what my angle are, and then I ran this up in front of it, ran my Sharpie line, which gave me my cut. Now, it obviously wasn't going to run that long. I wanted it tucked up here so that we can clear this cross member. But that means that I already know that this angle is right. So, we cut that piece, and now all I got to worry about is making sure it's basically straight towards the back. So, we're still okay. And once I had that piece figured out, I'd taken my straight edge here and I'd line this up like this. And I went, okay, this is where that stops, so I'm just going to move my straight edge off to the side, and we got these long 45s. And I figured out where along there I wanted this 45 to go, lined it up, and that's my cut. Now, of course, as I'm trying to explain this on video, I tack this here crooked. Just give me a second. I'm going to cut these tacks. I'm going to straighten this out of here. And I'm going to finish tacking this, and I'll show you how this other side's going to go. So the goal here is that we want an X pipe, we want dual mufflers up the back, but we've got a giant fuel tank inside of here. So normally I'd stuff the X pipe right up the middle, or right here, but realistically it just doesn't fly. The fuel tank's up in that territory. I don't want to mess with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to have the X pipe over here. But to clear that cross member, we had to keep that pipe high, so this comes down on an angle. But as you can see, if I run this pipe straight there, I don't need much of an angle, and it almost exactly lines up. That was the plan here, believe it or not. There's just enough room for a U-joint here, and the other thing is that I always want to make sure that it's serviceable, so that you take out the cross member, it'll come out, and you can take the transmission out without pulling the exhaust. It drives me up the wall having a giant welded exhaust that you have to drop to do any work on the truck. So I'm just tacking this whole thing together here because Dustin's going to TIG weld it. It's all stainless. So Dustin's going to TIG weld it once I'm done. I'm just getting the assembly ready. You know, it's quicker to tack it with the MIG. This thing's going to live in a garage. Nobody's going to see this. Nobody's going to see this again once it's built. So basically, I'm just going to get this all mocked up and on to the next piece. So Dustin had to lift up the hoist. We got the tank kind of muscled in. He's going to get some foam tape to replace this old worn out stuff. We got the tank all cleaned out. At this point, basically, I know where my high spot is on this piece that's kind of bent. This will allow it to come down and into the X pipe. I lined up my mark with the seams so that I know that has to be upright. So if I'm lining up to that, and I set that in there, and I know that this is on where it needs to be. As long as my gap up here is tight, I don't really need to worry about it. So, there. Now, aesthetically, it's going to drive me up the wall if this X pipe isn't square to the truck. I need enough room to get a 45 out here and up to there. And I need enough room to get the 45s out here. So this is a pretty good spot for it. So all I'm going to do is measure from the frame out 9 5/8, 9 7/8, 9 7/8, almost 9 7/8. And 9 7/8, 9 7/8. You don't have to go all the way into these. You can make them a slip joint. We're just going to weld it together, and then you'll pull out that whole piece all as one unit because it really doesn't need to come apart. So partially just double checking my own work and partially showing that I planned ahead. The string to the bottom, that the output shaft or the tail housing, output shaft, whatever. The tail housing is about 3 inches round. Pinion is, I don't know, say 4.5. So this would mimic more than the size of a 3-inch drive shaft. And we got at least a 3/4 inch room. And I don't need to worry about down travel because I think we've just agreed that we're going to run a 2-piece shaft. By the time it gets up, I think at full bump, this is going to run into an issue just because we got another, I don't know, 8 inches of up travel. We're pretty sure that it's going to get into there. Yeah, I think we're going to need a 2-piece drive shaft before we even worry about the exhausts. I mean, quick string line. We know we're clear. I can start welding up the other side. So up front here, this was the piece I cut off here. It was a little bit longer, but we wanted a V-band. And even right where this came out, this was going to be an issue. So since we've got 3-inch V-bands coming so we can step them down after the V-band, we needed to get this away. I'm not a big fan of pie cuts. I prefer the mandrels, but we didn't have a 3-inch mandrel. So all I did was slash cut this. This is going to go in pretty much like that, which is going to give us about 1 inch of space here. The V-band will be out here. It'll give us just enough room. The motor's got to come up just a hair with the other motor mount, like the factory motor mount clamshells that I grabbed. I just got to fix a tiny bit of a rock here. See it walking back and forth. So I'm going to take a little bit out of this area here, suck up that gap. Right there. And that way it's tight enough to take, since we're going to take all this. And then we can step it down. So that piece is all welded up there, but we need to get out about this far. It's a little bit different because we had to kick that in so we got clearance for the V-band because of where the headers drop instead of cutting the frame. But then we need to turn it out. So what I'm going to do, and take a hunk of that, that's going to turn out towards the frame into the direction of that, which I'll have to cut down shorter. And then from here, this will do a little jog down and then turn into there. And between this pipe and that pipe, I should still have left over, I think. Pretty close anyways. I might need a little bit more length, but that'll almost do it. Let's see if I can do this in one try. So there was nothing wrong with the cut before. Here's my line to line it up. The only reason I took it back out and recut it is because I wanted more clearance above the cross members. So since I had all the angles good, they literally just yanked it out, put it on the exact same angle further up. And good to go. Now it's just a matter of getting it level. Well, level and straight front to rear. Not that anybody will ever notice, but I will. There we go. There goes there. On the next piece. Okay. So with that all like that, we get a straight peak there. So you can see it doesn't need much of a bend up here. It doesn't need much of a bend down there. And I should have enough bend in this to basically split this up the middle, or pretty close to, And this is going to fill the gap here. And then we're off to the back, and then it gets a little bit easier. It's wide open, but I want it to look symmetrical. I want it to be clean, and I want a lot of clearance for wires, air, all the good stuff. I mean, we've got plastic airline for the bags. We've got all of our fuel lines. We're going to have battery cables because I want to put the battery over there in front of the fuel tank since we got lots of room. It'll get it out of sight. Try to make this thing as clean as possible under hood. So the more we can hide, the better. It's hot, but super overcomplicated considering how open it is. But I'm just gonna get it. It does look good, and it's all like that for a reason. I've been pretty adamant. I wanted this to be parallel. Had to have lots of room over the cross member, because you kind of got to twist these out and to get them out. Needed to clear the drive shaft. I already know it does. The U-joint will land in that. You pretty much put a 1550 joint in there. And put our V-bands in. Over here. Follows the frame again. I had an angle finder on it there. Make sure it's level to the frame. Drops down. This is about 1/8 of an inch above the bottom of the frame. So even if we got this thing to lay frame, I don't think the exhaust would. And the reason the X-pipe is over here is because our two-piece drive shaft is going to have to run here. Drive shaft will run up the middle. Pipe can't go that side. So we're probably going to go a sharp 45 straight back. And I think that they're going to end up going on either side of this shock bracket here. So that side will be a kind of sharp 45 and come back in. And that side will just go 45 and out. This pipe can come straight out the back to a muffler here. And then that pipe's going to have to come behind the diff over there to a muffler, which we realized we shorted ourselves. It's probably my fault. I tell Dustin what to order on this, and I thought I'd have enough. But usually the U-bends are longer. Like these, I think I lost about 10 inches per leg. Yeah, so I'm going to be a little bit short. So we're probably going to run just to here. That'll get us past the cab. Dustin can TIG that out. We can blend it up. And then when the cab goes on, at least we've just got under the bed to deal with. So we had to do some important planning here. We had to pause for a moment. These are the wheels and tires that are going on it. They measure about 26.5 inches round. Now, 26.5, half of that for your rolling diameter, or your radius, is 13.25. The thing is, that is about 13.5. Center line's about 13.5 above bottom of the frame, which means that'll just stuff. We put one of these all the way up. We jacked it all the way up. It's about 13.5 up. So it'll lay frame the whole way on those wheels. Now, planning for the exhaust, we're originally going to snake it underneath the diff, but we want to use up all the stroke possible, and the shocks that are designed to work with this actually have about 13 inches of stroke. Funny enough, that diff, the bottom of the diff, is about 13 inches above the bottom of the frame. So when the shocks are at full stroke, that bottom of the diff would be level with the bottom of that. Do we need it all? No, but there's absolutely no point in not building for it. If the suspension and the bags and the shocks can take it, why not the exhaust? So we got something trick coming up for that. But for right now, it's getting late tonight. I don't want to cut stainless in the heat anymore. Sweat and stainless dust sucks. So this is tie wired up. This is all where this belongs. That can't go anywhere. We're going to get on swapping out the clamshells, putting in the air lines, running brake lines. We're going to get on running all this stuff, all the air lines, all the brake lines, dealing with the stuff that we wanted to deal with. And then at that point, we can put those wheel adapters on the back, change that over to 5-on-5 from the 5-on-4.5 it is. And we can bolt the wheels on, we can put it on the ground. We're going to tee the air lines up out back so that we can just hit it with a tire chuck, air it up, push the schrader, air it down, move that frame over there, because this week we're actually juggling 2 trucks. This one we need to get to the point that we're ready for the body, and by tomorrow we'll be at that point, and then we're going to be back on the international record. So that's the game plan for tonight, is just make as much headway as possible, doing all the tedious menial, I think that's a word, all the minor jobs that need to be done before we kick it out of the way, and then move on to the next video where it would be the body.
It's gonna work.
And that should be spaced out enough that those don't bottom out.
Should be. It can go tighter, but at least it's snugged.
So last night wasn't quite as productive as we had hoped, but the motor mounts in. That was a nightmare. I've never had some that fit so poorly. Neither side the holes lined up. So that was a fight. Broke the tacks off at the collector. Ended up just packing it in for the night before we started throwing things. But since this lifted the motor up about 3/4 of an inch instead of, I thought it'd go about 1/4. Actually went about 3/4 of an inch. That changed the angle back here. And since that changed the angle here, I raised up all the exhaust. Instead of just this straight feeding into there, put a dip down there to clear the drive shaft. So we have more drive shaft room now than we did before. We also have more room over the cross member on both sides than we did before. And this morning, we got up bright and early and started continuing past. So now we've got our X-pipe. This kicks back together and it looks a little bit off. This is kind of a weird setup. If I built the X-pipe from scratch, I wouldn't have kicked it out like that, but this works. Looks kind of funny, but it's because since we've got this wishbone, the exhaust will not fit under the rear end when it's all the way aired up. There's not enough room there without moving the shocks. And even if we move the shocks, there's still some packaging issues to get it to that side because we'd have to go over and then back. Anyways, some of this is just for style points. So both of these tubes follow this line of the wishbone. They also parallel the wishbone this way. So from here, the driver's side tube is going to come over here. It's going to drop straight down here behind the diff. And it's going to kick straight back here into our muffler under the frame. We got 8 inches from the frame to what would be the ground. And then this one here will kick over basically 45 degrees, come straight down here, and then kick out the back. Now, we just underestimated how much exhaust tubing we were going to need, and this is quite literally every single piece except, that's all that's left, plus some slivers. Every single angle's used up, every single piece. That's it, that's what we got. So we need to order a couple more 180-degree mandrels to finish this out, but it's all suspended. Got some hangers. We didn't notice when we ordered, but we got 1/2-inch hangers with 3/8. So hog these out with a tapered reamer. It works good. They can't go anywhere. This pipe's joined and they stop each other from walking back and forth, but beefy. Yeah, so this is all together. So now I'm not going to show you guys the steering stuff, or maybe I will. Who knows? I'm going to put the steering together because as soon as the steering is together, we can basically plumb some airbags, put the wheels on. Dustin's got the adapters on already, so we can plumb the airbags, put this thing on the ground, tee a couple of lines, air it up, and then we're going to roll it over there. So all that machine work, it's good to have friends that, hack stuff together like I do sometimes. Brad came up with that whole machining head for the mill. This was the first one. It's a little bit rough until he figured out the chatter on it. But Dustin was saying that he's talked to the parts guys and it's a known problem lately. Some of these castings aren't clearing rotors. So he's already got this one cleaned up with a little flapper. Remember the last video, it didn't clear at all. Now, this one's bolted on there. And it clears. I don't know where you can see that. There you go. That whole pocket. Yeah, Brad's a hero.
That's good. Those bags are looking.
They're good for 300 psi. Your shop doesn't put out that much.
Yeah, just the way they're contorted.
Oh yeah, they'll be okay. Okay, so we're going to try and explain this to both videos at once again. Or before, because you haven't seen the other video yet. So the exhaust is all done except for welding. Dustin's going to stainless wire MIG this. So it's all going to come out. It's all going to get welded and wire wheel it, clean it up. Basically, off the headers, my video explains at the beginning. We've got 3-inch band clamps that'll go here. We didn't have them yet. These had those goofy 3-bolt flanges. They suck. They're horrible. They leak. Band clamps are better. So what we've done is we took the collector that went 3-inch down to 2.5. We've got it tack welded here. These will get cut. Band clamp will go in, and that's going to be a positive seal. We got Renflex gaskets up top, nice polished stainless headers. This was cut in clearance to move it out of the way because the band clamp adds a bunch of width, and straight, it was actually going to get into the frame here. So from there, we've got a dip down here. It looks a little bit off, but obviously putting the X pipe in the middle here becomes a problem because we have a fuel tank. So our original plan was to run off the X pipe, and we're going to run straight out the back on either side of that shock mount there. And what we ran into is that this truck, when it's aired up, the axle's below the frame. So when this was on the ground, the exhaust would be through the ground. It wasn't going to work. It was going to hold it up. So
The axle was going to travel through the
there we
space
go.
that the exhaust occupied.
Exactly what he said. So we got the X pipe. It looks a little bit weird, but we didn't want to restrict flow. So it's got a bend out, dual here. And then once we realized we had to go over the top, the only way to do this right was to match the angles of the upper wishbone. So they match that way. They follow the same angle. On the side, they follow the same angle. Dustin's going to air this thing up, though, so you can actually see, like, this goes up a mile. That's not even, there we go. Yeah, so as you can see, at this point, we could have run the exhaust over the axle. Like, there is a mountain of room there. That is ridiculous. It's crazy how much height it gets. We won't get quite that much because the shocks will actually limit it. That's the advantage of the bag on bar setup. It gets a ridiculous amount of travel. 9 inches of stroke there is like 20 inches of stroke at the axle. I think we've got 13-inch stroke shocks. But once we get over the top, these bars are parallel to the ground. They're parallel to this. Drop down behind the axle and then tuck underneath the back package tray that is sitting there. It's back on the ground. Dustin's just going to throw this up here. This is pretty cool. So the idea here is that we've got an aluminum pan. It's going to tuck up like that. All the holes for the tanks, the compressors, the solenoid pack, they're already in the aluminum. So we already know where everything goes. Lays out just like that. It's going to keep everything super clean. The tips aren't welded on yet because we need to sort out bumper stuff. We can move in and out a little bit if we need to. But you can see the idea in the exhaust here was that we wanted lots of air gap between that and the tanks. We don't want to overheat the air. Don't want to heat up the aluminum. Don't want anything to rub. From here, we're going to have a panel that comes up the bridge notch forward and probably notched out for the exhaust, the shocks, whatever. And part of the reasoning for that is that originally he wanted a panel that opens up, you know, like show truck style, show off the notch. We're not super happy with this notch because honestly, it wasn't put together the greatest.
At that point in the build, there was nothing to actually even be proud of to show off.
Exactly. Like, we weren't super happy with the notch or the wishbone or some of the fab work here, but we were starting with an already built frame and we were upgrading it. Now that this is like this, he opens up the back end and he's going to have this beautiful view of all of his polished air system, all the aluminum, the stainless, everything. I mean, the quality of build into the exhaust with everything fitting and all the angles, and you can make an exhaust fit, that's easy, but making it flow with multiple angles so it looks like it belongs there, that's art. I'm proud of this one. I love how this thing flows. It should sound.
Very functional art.
Yeah.
Functional art is what I call it.
Yeah, and it should sound gnarly. These mufflers might be a little bit small, but the advantage is if it's too much, we got tons of room under there for bigger mufflers. He's still, I measured it. I want to say he's 5 inches off the ground there. So 5 inches there, and he's got 4 inches above him, and obviously all that width in the middle. We could put something bigger in, change the sound. That's a decision for a later date. But for now, you know, this thing aired out. It's on the ground. It's ready to go. Yeah.
We're close. We just got to get into getting our brake lines and fuel lines plumbed. We got a couple of fittings today put up for that, for the AN stuff. And I think we're looking at dragging the body up here to start fitting that in another week or two.
Yeah. Oh, and we've got the whole accessory drive. It's got a power steering pump and alternator, because this has, you can't just put a typical accessory drive on it. It's got a reverse rotation water pump. We've got the power steering pump. We've got the alternator, and it's actually got an AC pump. So we'll see what happens there. But we've got all that. That'll be good to go on. Yeah. Oh, battery's going to go down here. We've decided that. It's a nice spot for it. Probably put a panel underneath the driver's seat. Am I missing anything?
No, I think we're going to be taking this one for coffee before the summer's out.
Yeah. Perfect. There we go. That's the end of this for this trip. There you have it. That's part 3. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is the last time you'll see this frame before we have a body for it. Next time you see it here, a couple of weeks from now, in your time, we're going to have the 59 Apache here. We're going to strip it down. We're going to get the cab on, cut down the box. We have a mountain of stuff to do. This one we actually get to take all the way to a driver. I am super proud of the work we did. There's definitely some things I would change if we were doing it from scratch. There are definitely some suggestions I'd make to people. You know, if you guys want to comment on that, you want to get some advice, you want to give me some feedback, you want to tell me what you think of what I'm doing, drop a comment down below. Enjoyed this video, like it, follow the channel, click the alarm bell, do the whole YouTube thing, help me beat the algorithms. Back when I used to post videos regularly, the videos showed up on everybody's feed, and now I'm being told that nobody even realizes that I'm doing videos again. Maybe you enjoy them, maybe you don't, maybe you hate my guts. Whatever it is, check it out. If you love the videos, go check out the old stuff. Bump up the views, make Facebook happy. Yeah, I'll tell you what, I am done on this one for this trip, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in, guys.